The whispering walls. MIA's hands trembled as she gripped the rusty key, her breath shallow in the biting cold air. The old house stood before her, its silhouette looming against the bruised evening sky. It was the house her grandmother had warned her about, the house no one in their small town dared to speak of. But after her grandmother's sudden death, Mia had inherited it. And tonight, curiosity, or perhaps foolishness, drove her to unlock its secrets. The key slid into the lock with a grating sound, and the door creaked open, spilling a thick, musty odor into the night. Mia hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest, but she stepped inside. The house was eerily quiet, as though the walls themselves held their breath. Dust-coated furniture stood frozen in time, untouched for years. She had expected the creaks of the floorboards beneath her feet, but the suffocating silence unnerved her. Something about it was wrong, too wrong. As she wandered deeper into the house, her flashlight flickering, she heard a faint whisper. It was too soft to make out the words, but it was there, unmistakable and chilling. She continued down the hallway, every step feeling heavier, as if the air itself thickened the deeper she went. The whispers grew louder, but they weren't coming from any direction she could pinpoint. It was as if they were inside the walls. Mia stopped, her pulse a thunderous roar in her ears. She pressed her ear to the cold plaster. The whispers, faint yet insistent, rushed into her head like a maddening chorus. But they weren't just whispers now. They were words. Leave. Go back. Danger. She staggered back, her heart pounding. The whispers sounded desperate, warning her, urging her to flee. Panicked, she turned to leave, but the hallway behind her seemed to stretch on endlessly, longer than before. The door she had entered through was nowhere in sight. No, 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 she whispered, her voice shaking as she broke into a run. But the house shifted around her like a maze, twisting and elongating. The walls seemed to pulse, their surface rippling with dark, foreboding energy. And then, she heard the footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Not hers. They echoed down the hallway, growing closer, closer, as if someone or something was stalking her from the shadows. Tears welled in her eyes as she turned around frantically, but there was no one behind her. The footsteps were everywhere, surrounding her, closing in. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her chest tightening with raw fear. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw something moving in the dark. A figure, tall and gaunt, its face obscured by the gloom, standing at the far end of the corridor. Its eyes, glowing faintly, locked onto hers with a hunger that made her blood run cold. Mia stumbled back, her legs feeling weak, her body trembling. She tried to scream, but her voice was strangled, caught in her throat. The figure moved closer, its steps unnaturally slow, deliberate, as if savoring her terror. Suddenly, the walls around her began to groan, their surfaces bulging and cracking as though something inside them was trying to break free. The whispers grew into a deafening roar, a cacophony of voices, crying out in agony. Mia. The sound of her name echoed from all directions, spoken by the voices of people long gone, their desperation seeping into her bones. She clutched her head, her mind reeling, her sanity slipping. Out of sheer instinct, she bolted down the hallway, her vision blurred with terror. The house twisted around her, doors appearing and disappearing, leading nowhere. She was trapped, lost in an endless nightmare. With trembling hands, she fumbled for the knob and flung it open, stumbling into a room drenched in darkness. Her flashlight flickered weakly, casting shadows that danced and twisted like living things. In the center of the room stood a single mirror, its surface cracked, reflecting a distorted version of herself. But something was wrong. Her reflection wasn't moving in sync with her. It stared back at her, smiling. MIA's breath hitched as the reflection's lips parted, whispering words she couldn't understand. Her reflection began to step closer, moving through the glass, the smile widening, eyes hollow and empty. Panic surged through her, and she turned to flee, but the door slammed shut with a violent force. She was trapped. The whispers in the walls reached a fever pitch, and from the cracks in the mirror, black tendrils snaked out, reaching for her. They slithered around her ankles, cold and slimy, dragging her toward the mirror. No. No, please. She screamed, thrashing against the inescapable pull. The figure in the mirror laughed a sickening, distorted sound as it reached out to pull her into the darkness. The last thing Mia saw before the mirror swallowed her whole was her own reflection, still smiling, but now, it wasn't her. It was something else entirely, something ancient and unspeakably evil. The house was patient. It would wait for the next